This is the 8-9 Combo.
This is the 8-9 Combo. I'm Brett McKay. This is Harry Jones. And, mate, the 2025 British and Irish Lions tour, a series that has been coming for years, is suddenly just days away. I feel like we've lost 2 years in a week. Where's this time gone?
How's it, Brett? I know it's afoot. I was reflecting today about time.
Yes.
So it's funny you bring that up. And what this 8-9 combo thing is, and I was mindful of a theologian and writer, G.K. Chesterton, who wrote sort of in the wake of World War II that shattered all these illusions. That once upon a time in the future, orthodoxy will be gone, and we won't, rally around these familiar places to have comfort and community. And maybe it just happens in podcasts. I mean, seriously, one of our good friends, Belinda Glenn, the woman who rated our podcast as the best one to listen to in a bathtub, and Rian Lowe, Ringo, our great friend, and then of our longtime friend Trev, have suffered such tragedy this year, so many travails. And in a way, this is where people come around. I'm not trying to be too serious about it, but it's interesting. Rian lost his dad suddenly, age 66, just out of the blue this week. Yeah. Absolutely gutting. Belinda lost her mother in Ireland, and to go see her, and Trev lost so much. And I just think it's important to remember that around rugby and around sport and around these things we talk about that are silly and funny, even you joking with Rian sort of the day after to make him feel better, there's something to that. It's the hearth. We're back around the fire. So rugby. Thanks a lot for everyone who always reaches out and also kind of cross-pollinates with people inside our pod world. It's really kind of cool to see when you get to the point that we're at now with 8,000-ish followers.
Yeah, that's a good point. And our absolute thoughts with Rhian and his family at this time. It's such a shock to me, even thousands of kilometers away. So I certainly could not imagine what he's going through. But we're certainly thinking of you, mate, and we hope to catch up with you again very, very soon. This is going to be the most awkward segue maybe I've ever made in terms of podcasts. Here's cheers.
Hey, listen, Rian
what are we giving cheers to now?
Rian and I will lift a glass in Joburg this year. And that's exactly what we'll do. So cheers. The game must go on.
Yes, it must.
I got a cheers for you. We all need to. From time to time, we find ourselves needing to lose a few kgs. I'm going to extol the virtues of one Asanati Ntlabakanye, who comes along just when you mastered Sasha Feinberg, Mngomazulu's name. Now we have Ntlabakanye. Just remember the Kanye West. That's a good go-to in the middle. He had about 18 kgs he needed to lose to meet the weight for Rassie Erasmus and his scrum coach, Don Human. He's a tight head, so I'll just put that out there. And he was rolling in around, about 158 kgs. So he went to his scrum coach's farm in the Free State, and they just, chased lambs and picked things and moved around, and slowly but surely, he dropped 18 kilograms, and now he's taking the field against the Barbars at a sleek 140 kgs.
He's trimmed down to 140 kilos. Holy moly. Yeah, well, look, if running around on your coach's farm's not going to get it done for you, what will?
I mean, it's got to be really kind of tense and awkward at times, too. There's some great pictures on Russie's socials. Go look at it. He literally takes us behind the curtain and shows him what it's like a Karate Kid moment. Do this, do that, do this, do that. And literally, Asanati is a great fellow, is cradling lambs and picking fruit, and that's how he's getting sustenance every day.
Could he not have just found a nutritionist?
Well, there's a long history of nutritionists in the Bach camp that we don't want to get into.
No, maybe not. Maybe that's a different way of doing it. I'm sorry to do this, and we've been on this cheer crusade for a good while, a good few months now, but I need to bring you a jeer.
No.
I do.
Say it in.
I do. I need to bring a jeer, and it's a very specific niche jeer. I don't like the font of the Lions jerseys numbers.
You're such a fontologist.
It looks great when you're looking at one jersey up front, but think about the view of the fan in this. They don't want to see a 5 that doesn't look like a 5. It just make it clear and obvious and blockish. Like, it works because it works.
Yeah, I'm going to call you Little Fauntleroy, man. You are so into the font.
Change it before Saturday night.
It's not going to happen. What do you think about the names on the jersey?
You know
just
exactly.
In general.
You know exactly what I think about names on jerseys.
I'm just trying to feed more jeers.
Yes. I'm going to die on that hill, and I feel like that hill's getting smaller. But anyway, our great mate, Geoff Parkes, joins us for another great rugby chat next. But first, mate, we have done it. We've hit 8,000 YouTube subscribers, and we can't believe it. We thank you all so much. So now I want you to tell the nice people why being an 8-9 subscriber will definitely change their lives if they're not amongst the 8,000.
You need to join us. Like I said, orthodoxy is gone. It's dead. No one goes to the country club anymore. The bowls clubs are all gone. It's defunct. All we have is rugby. And we only can do it because we're a worldwide community by joining each other in this particular formation until it changes in 5-6 years, and just be with us. Cohesion markers, Darwinian theory, be with us.
Yeah. Until there's an inevitable creative split at some point. If you are watching us on YouTube and you're not subscribed, and a good chunk of you aren't, then just hit the little red button down there in the bottom corner. If you're listening on any of the pod platforms, just hit like, hit subscribe, hit follow, whatever it happens to be, and make sure you don't miss a thing, particularly as we start ripping into the Lions series. The Super Rugby Pacific season is done, with the annual 19-week competition to find out who loses to the Crusaders, in the final being won by the Chiefs. This week's guest is part of the International Rugby Chat group of mystery that brought Harry and I together more than a decade ago, and has seen both of us in person, but not together. He's the author of the fantastic book, A Year in the Life and Death of the Melbourne Rebels, and he's a crime writer and all that now as well, and his must-read weekly column, The Wrap, is on the Raw website in Australia every Monday. It is great to welcome back to the 8-9, Geoff Parkes. Hello, mate. How you doing? What have you got going on over there?
No, there's a bit. I'm trying to sort the reflection out here, which is a little bit of a distraction.
You've got a nice halo effect going on. It's lovely.
Yeah, but anyway, look, I'm sure you guys are such technical wizards. I'm sure you'll fix that up in the editing. And look, I'm really pumped, I must say, this week. I'm not in the best place ahead of a Lions trip, in the hotbed of Taranaki rugby, under the shadows of Mount Taranaki. It's not really the place you come to get pumped up for a Lions versus Western Force game, but this is rugby country here, so it's good enough. I'll be back in Australia when the serious stuff starts next week, and can't say how much I'm looking forward to it. It's just fantastic. To have Lions here, even if the font is a bit dodgy, I don't care. It's all about the rugby. And the other thing that I'm really excited about is, you guys talking about nutritionists and South African rugby. If you can't get fired up by that, then you'll never get fired up about anything. So,
Geoff, I understand you're over there with some crime novelists, and you also, doing a rugby thing. Is there any besides you? Is there an overlap? Are the crime novelists rugby aficionados and the rugby people reading crime novels?
No. Well, the topic did come up at last night's event, and one person mentioned rugby to me in the chit chat afterwards. So there's a tiny bit of crossover there. In terms of the rugby audience, I'll be at a club reunion over the weekend. I don't think there's too many literary. I think people read a bit of rugby news and stuff like that. And look, I shouldn't taint everyone with the same brush. So I'm sure there's some readers in there, but I won't be talking about my crime novel much. We'll be reliving, as every good rugby reunion should. We'll be delivering, bullshit stories to each other about how good we were, and that's exactly how it should be.
Yes, indeed. Questionable memories of how things actually were. We will get into the Lions shortly, and I'm looking forward to that. But we thought we better touch on Super Rugby, the final, and give it a proper wrap up. And we made mention, Geoff, of your the line you used in our chat group over the weekend that you called it the most comprehensive 4-point toweling I've ever seen. The Crusaders 16-12 win over the Chiefs, and it's a couple of days later, it's still the most apt description of the game I've seen, because 4 points suggested it was a close game, but I could not work out where the Chiefs were going to find a try from in that second half. They just never looked like they were going to get there.
No, exactly right. And, it only takes a drop ball and a runaway or something special to happen either way. But it just never felt like it in the run of play. And when you think about it afterwards, it just wasn't happening. And that's, I guess, credit to the Chiefs for keeping the scoreline so close. Their defence was outstanding. And also a measure of how the Crusaders played. They knew they had the game under control. They didn't need to do anything stupid. They didn't get a lot of penalties that were kickable. Yeah. Again, that's down to the Chiefs being disciplined, but they had it under control, and it just didn't feel close. And in the end, it really wasn't.
Yeah, it was. As I say, Harry, with a couple of days reflection, it did feel pretty one-sided, despite the closeness of the scoreline.
I mean, I've seen more one-sided matches, to be honest, in some of them in the playoffs across the world. So for me, Geoff, I've actually started coming around in the days following to what parity there is amongst the New Zealand teams. I mean, bolstered by the fact that when Razor named his squad, it's 11 Chiefs and 7 Crusaders, 7 Hurricanes, 3 Highlanders, 4 Blues. It's interesting because maybe only in France, but they have influx of other players, the Argentines, Islanders. So only New Zealand is able to sort of pull this off, where you have 4 really, really pretty close teams. Yes, there's a stacking order, but it's not the same as the drop off from Leinster to the others, or from Toulouse, Bordeaux to the others. Yeah. And so it's interesting is that behind the scenes is just some machinations and puppeteering to pull that off, because it's really quite remarkable year after year after year, with, of course, Crusaders ending the top usually, but there's usually at least 3, sometimes 4 really good teams.
Yeah, I think it says something too about the Crusaders and their systems, and they don't need 15 All Blacks to start. They need a core of quality people. Will Jordan at the back, obviously. Yeah. Taylor at 2. Scott Barrett really came into form in the last few weeks at 4. So as long as they have, and David Havili, experienced guy in the midfield, and as long as they've got that spine to build around, then everyone else just steps up from their academy through their system. The Macca Springers of the world. Yeah. Shalfoon at lock, guys like this. Tom Christie, he's never going to make the All Blacks and be a world-beating woman. But Tom Christie and Christo Leo-Willie, and I know that he's now been named in the All Black side. Those two particularly were so crucial to the Crusaders through the run through the finals. Yeah, no question. And Leo-Willie, I'm really great to see him get recognition. I know there's a lot of people still want to see Hoskins Sotutu in there. But Leo-Willie is, he's a guy on the rise. The stocks are rising. He's got nice feet. He's got a hard set of shoulders, and he's got seems to have a good head about him. He's come up through the age group systems. It's not like he's come out of nowhere. And I think if he keeps improving, He's not the excitement machine that Wallace Satiti is, but he's on that same, he's cut from the same cloth, really. And I think he's a good pick, and he's been fantastic for the Crusaders this year.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So, Harry, why, again, reflecting a couple of days later, why were the Crusaders so emphatic, and why couldn't the Chiefs find a solution?
There's a thing that people always talk about. They return to that in championships with the talk of DNA, and then we mock it and we sort of make fun of it. But it's true. There are things that are handed down. There's a super connection between a guy right now playing for Crusaders, who's 28, and someone who's already gone by now, is 34, 35, who got something from someone who's now 42. That continuity of handing down of how to close out games. I also think they're like good marathon runners in that when you're training for a marathon, let's say you're targeting Boston Marathon, your times 3 months before not of no concern. It's all about that final month, tapering, understanding how to peak. And there's a science to peaking, and there are teams that just know how to do it. I mean, you can look across at Ireland and say Munster, look at them and go, yeah, but if they're at the business end, watch out.
Yeah.
And you even saw that in a very more short-term memory of the Blues, saying, okay, the Blues were written off, but then they just kind of snuck in and snuck around, and they were trouble too.
And did some damage, yeah.
Yeah, so, and then contrast would be like maybe the Reds, that they have clearly not got that yet. So I just think you look at the Crusaders, and they are, they're like a big, heavy filet mignon steak with wine and peppercorns on it. Like, it's substantive, man. Like, you eat that thing and it stays stuck to you. I love a guy like Shalfoon. I don't know if he'll be an All Black ever, but that kind of guy, just engine right next to a really good All Black, and great combinations. Geoff, you look at the lack of panic. That's what I probably would focus on the most. Calm, composure, control.
Yeah, they absolutely believe in what they're doing, and that's been a hallmark right through Super Rugby for them. And they don't win every year, but they're winning around about 50%, just under 50% of them.
They don't win every year; they only win every second year. Damn it!
So that must what comes with that obviously is incredible self-belief and comfort when you're in those dark, heavy moments in a final. They can trust each other and trust their system, and they know it's going to work. And I think also it is a credit to the leadership. David Havili is he's not the greatest All Black that's ever played. He's lost his place in the squad now, but you can tell he's a strong leader that younger players would look up to. And I think Scott Barrett as well cops a lot of criticism. Bit ill-disciplined for a captain of a national side, all this sort of stuff. But I'm sure he had the hard word put on him with Sam Whitelock leaving, all that experience going out there. It's up to Barrett to step into that hole and be the senior pack leader, and I'd imagine that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah, there's guys in that pack, and Barrett is definitely one of them. Cody Taylor is one. Ethan Blackadder is one, where you can see that the pack just lifts when just one of those guys comes back into it. They just the collective is better than before, and it's hard to as much as it's a bit cool to be down on the Crusaders. It's hard not to admire what they achieve. The fact that they can have as ordinary a season as they did last year, and their response isn't just to bounce back and get back into the finals next year, it's to win the bloody thing. So they do a lot of things right as an organisation.
And they did so much right in this final. It was a tricky night. It was dewy. It wasn't a great night for rugby. And the other thing there's been so much focus on in recent weeks about the number of penalties at the breakdown and fetchers being rewarded for getting their hands on the ball and all of these turnover penalties. There were hardly any in this match, and considering the number of hit-ups there were. And the reason why was because not because Gus decided to put the whistle away and not penalise anybody.
No, certainly not.
But the Crusaders' support play and attacking hit-ups were just first class, and they never gave the Chiefs an opportunity to lift the ball in the ruck. So again, it comes down to how do we want to play this final, and not just talking about it, but delivering.
Yeah, their carrying clean was exceptional, and it took Satidi, it took Jacobson, it took Finau out of the game essentially, and that's
absolutely
what it came down to, Harry.
Yeah, and it's sort of like this sort of joke almost. Like the Chiefs had a regular season of plus 231 points differential, right? Crusaders at plus 100, so 131 points differential difference between the two teams. But the Chiefs are like a chocolate souffle that just misses the mark. It's so close. And the Crusaders know one thing, which is, but when we get to the finals, it's going to look a lot like this. One or two line breaks. Yeah. Got to play through you, like the Blues a year ago. Got to play through you. And it's sad. It's really gutting to watch, a great coach, some wonderful players, some really good hard workers like Luke Jacobs. And they go, oh, no, that was never really going to work against this team in Christchurch. They're going to bemoan lots of things, including dropping the quarterfinal qualifying thing we're calling. But still, I just think they have to understand that these are always the ways all finals end up being played, with tiny exceptions.
Yes, which is the point that you've been making over the weekend, that for all the build up over the previous 16 weeks of how good our tries, and we love seeing 8 and 9 and 10 tries a game, and play wide and play expansively and all that, and then the last 3 weeks of the competition it tightens up and it's just proper knockout rugby. So, we get that.
And that was also evidenced through the scrum, right? And I don't think anybody expected the level of dominance that the Crusaders got in the scrum. And that's 4 or 5 full-arm penalties in the middle of the game and in the second half. That's all that field position, right? And that just kept the Crusaders throwing into a line out around the 22. And the Chiefs, they're going nowhere from there. And that all came down to, again, just those basics and all the important stuff that needs to happen in a final. And
I didn't see those as contentious, Geoff. Did you see those scrum penalties as contentious? I felt like maybe one was a bit iffy, but the rest was just actually obvious.
Yeah, and always at the start of a game, there's scope for a penalty that doesn't really reflect dominance. It's just a guy not into the game, his bind slips or something, he's just not quite tuned in. But once you're into 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 minutes of a game, those scrum penalties then really are about who's got the dominant scrum. And that was clearly the Crusaders. And at the end, that as much as anything probably was the biggest contributor to their win.
Well, their discipline across the board, not just at the breakdown, but their discipline across the board was basically faultless for the game, and that had an effect of it. It took Damien McKenzie out of the game a bit. You mentioned, Harry, the Chiefs scored 130 points more than any other team, or 138 points differential better.
Differential, right?
Yeah. They scored. They and the Crusaders and the Brumbies both scored 70+ tries, even on so many levels. But the Chiefs kicked 25 more penalty goals than any other team this year. And McKenzie didn't get a chance to do that. He was the leading point scorer in the competition by daylight, and he got 2 kicks at goal for the night.
Well, there is a thing called a drop goal, and people love their entry stats. And they go, we only average 1.34. I'll tell you how to boost those. Take a drop goal every now and then in a final.
Yeah, there was 8 shots at drop goal in Super Rugby all year, and 3 of them came in a Golden Point game in Perth. So there you go. Nice. You want us to go through and name names, drop teams into categories, and you've sent me just dot points. There's overperformers, there's underperformers, there's newcomers, there's old lion, big moment, overarching narrative. What are we doing here?
Oh, yeah. Okay, sure. So
remember earlier in the week. Remember earlier in the week when you said, "Hey, let's do this."
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I've got some, but we lost Geoff.
We have lost Geoff. So
ran away.
We'll try and we'll hopefully get him back on very, very shortly if the internet in the Taranaki comes back. But what are you thinking? What do you want to do here?
So overperformer, I guess that's a team. Underperformer, a team, and then players,
Newcomer's
a newcomer, and then old lion, lost legs. Just that old guy that has a burst. Great year, and then the biggest moment that occurred to you, and then overall, what is the overarching macro meta narrative of Super Rugby 25?
Right. Okay. So overperformer as a team, overperforming team this year. Maybe it's the Chiefs. Oh, no. Sorry. I'm going about this the wrong way. Overperformer.
I'm going with Moana Pacifica.
Who went better than we? Yeah. That it is them.
I did not have them being so good, and it's one of those incredible. It's overperformer Moana Pacifica, and we'd say it's because of overperformer Artie Savea, except he never overperforms because we always know he's going to perform.
He played pretty well bog standard, didn't he? But the impact of his bog standard on the rest of that team was incredible. Yeah, that's a good shout. They were exceptional. I think there are moments of overperformance for numerous different teams, but across the board, I think Moana fits that.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
What about underperformer?
Then the easy one would be someone like the Waratahs, the Highlanders, but I don't know that they did underperform because I think they ended up about where we expected. I think it's going to come down to certainly the Blues, maybe even Queensland. There might even be an argument for the Hurricanes in here.
Yeah. I as you know, I tend to focus on points differential over a season, and so the Highlanders only minus 90. Oh, it's bad. But I was attracted to the Waratahs at minus 134, just because when I go back in time and I really am honest with myself, before the season began, I think a lot of us had some high hopes for them. They had picked up some really good talent. They had a great coaching team together. If it was talking about food, they'd have some culinary dissonance here. I felt like they kind of put themselves in strange positions on their back line. There wasn't a lot of coherence in what they wanted to achieve. I'd say underperform for the Tars.
Yeah. Oh, they definitely did. But I didn't have the super faith in the ability of the rebuild that was evident at the start of the year. They were, I mean, the running joke in Australian rugby is that the Waratahs are the hashtag February champions every year, and that was again the case. I think it was almost a little bit ironic this year that they'll be February champions, they'll be champions again this year. No one expected the Waratahs to win this year. But there was definitely an expectation
finals
that they would be back in the finals, that they would be a top 6 team again. I wasn't convinced that would be the case. The degree of rebuild was
something was weird there with my friend Tane Edmed too, where Joe still has him at 4th best in the nation, but he's coming in at 3rd at the Tars. And I go, I just don't. I mean, it's to your benefit, and the Brumbies are about to get Tane Edmed.
Seems that way.
So I don't know. What about newcomer?
I kind of
shook my head. I mean, I scratched my head on this.
You're thinking of So you're thinking of a
player that just really made a mark and had not previously done that.
I've got to think about this now.
I'm kind of cheating because this guy has been around, but he's only 22. So Noah Hotham.
Yeah,
I like him, and maybe I just hadn't paid as much attention to him. I know he's been named in the All Blacks and so forth, but I felt like he put together a hell of a season.
Yeah. Look, I would go to someone like Ruben Love for the Hurricanes went from fullback, really dangerous second playmaker at the fullback, to suddenly wearing 10 and looking very, very comfortable, which is great development in his game because he played 10 for the Hurricanes a couple of years ago, and just I don't know that 10's going to be your spot, mate.
I love watching him play.
He looked really good, and his connection with Roigard was very, very good, to the point that when they came back to Canberra for the qualifying final and Love was back to fullback, I know I certainly felt better about the Brumbies' chances. So that's one I would throw in there. I even think that someone like Lockie Anderson's a bit old to be a newcomer, but he had a really, really good season.
They could be like a rebounder,
a late bloomer, and he probably took the first 6 weeks to find his feet at Queensland, but by the time it came to finals, he was among Queensland's best every week. Yeah. So he'd be a good one, I think.
That's a good shout. And I like rebounds. There's a player in the NBA. They name a guy in the NBA who sort of rebounds and comes back, the comeback player or something.
Yeah,
that could be
comeback player.
A category. Yeah,
it's a comeback player. It'd be a comeback player.
James O'Connor, maybe.
Yeah, that's actually a really good shout. Yeah. I mean, he landed in Christchurch knowing that he wasn't first choice 10, still had a belief that he could do the job, but he fell into a role that he could do so well and that worked so well for the Crusaders that he played every game for them this year.
Rock solid, and he played lockdown,
rock solid, dependable, unflighty, played 1 minute of the final, and now he ends a 20-year Super Rugby career as a winner. It's a bit of a
borrowing of the baseball closer who comes on and just pitches one inning. Sometimes he just has to get one guy out, and he gets an actual statistic called. He gets the win and he gets the close. And I felt like they used Rabbit O'Connor so well to just come in and shut down the game. And kudos to him. He might have been a good old lion lost legs, but in that category, I went with Cody Taylor. I just thought Cody Taylor has always been a good player, but geez, he just came on and said, I'm going to be one of the best forwards in Super Rugby at age 34. What is he sporting? 96 All Black caps, but he looked like he was hungry, young.
Yeah. I've just thought of a good comeback too. Darcy Swain for the Western Force was excellent. True. All year.
Picked.
Old Lion, last legs. I know who I'll give a shout to here. I'll give James Slipper a shout.
Yeah, Slips.
There were points this year where I thought, you know what? I think after the Lions series, he might be done. Like, that might be him done. But he got better and better as the year went on. The Brumbies used him well. The Wallabies will use him well. We may still be seeing the last of him in a Wallabies jersey in 2025. And I say that, with absolutely nothing to back that up at all.
146 caps would suggest at some point he's going to.
At some point, yes, he's certainly closer to the end than the start. But he's going to go around for the Brumbies again next year. And that could be a really that could just give him the chance to play with freedom. You could just go out and play rugby for the love of it. Again.
I'm kind of upset with James Slipper, bastard, because I was drawing these diagrams and I had the Rangers per position group of the Lions and then contrasting with the Wallabies. And then one guy that messes up my whole picture is James Slipper. Like, literally, he makes no sense. He's so far off the edge. I was doing, these columns of 10 caps, and he's got too many.
Yeah. 100 what's he up to?
146. Yeah. Oh,
well, that's just 146 tests. I think he's up to 198 Super Rugby games.
So that's okay. I was just going test caps, and it's still ridiculous.
It's still okay. Yeah. So the big moment then of the year.
What
are you saying?
The one that sticks in my mind, and I think it will for a long time, was the Blues last-minute attack on the line, just battering at the line, and the Crusaders saying no. And the Blues saying, yes, we're back. And literally, we're going to come and just steal this thing in the semifinal and go on and win again. And the Crusaders just denying them. It was riveting rugby.
Not. Yeah. They said, no, you are not 38
what was it,
times.
38 phases.
38 phases.
Just was ridiculous.
Eight solid minutes that passage went for. The Blues held the ball for. That's incredible. That's a good shout. I like that. The thing that I won't stop thinking about this year was the inability of the Western Force and the Hurricanes to win a game over there in Perth. They tried for 15 minutes of regular time to try and win it. They then played 10 minutes of golden point, and they could not be split. And
we don't want to take this.
of all the draws that you can think of watching in your time, most of them you would think, oh, that really did. Yeah, they didn't deserve. One of them deserved to win. That was one of those draws where nope, neither of them deserved more points than they got.
Yeah, that's true for sure. It was painful, actually.
Yeah. So then the overarching narrative. Well, this is easy. The overarching narrative of Super Rugby is going to be, we're back, baby. It was a largely. It might have finished in a way that's too many people, I think, have gone, oh, it's predictable again. The Crusaders are winning. But too much of the season was unpredictable for that narrative to be true. So I think the overarching narrative is that anyone can win, and anyone did win this year. And we know how hard our tipping comp was at times. Yeah. In a weekend where there was 5 games, sometimes 3 out of 5 was a good weekend of tipping, and that's a good sign, I think.
Yeah, speaking of our absconded guest, I think he was the one who won the tipping competition.
He did. But he had to claim it on this podcast, and if you're not here to claim it,
ineligible. I went with narrowed margins. Yeah, I think that was probably the narrative that made more people tune in and watch their team and not give up too easily or quickly.
Yep. Yeah, well, I've said and I've mentioned it numerous times through the year, for a long time, there were more losing bonus points than there were 4 try bonus points. It was basically 1 for 1 by the end of the season. I think it was 61 and it was 31-30. So that's over the last few years, they've been close. None have been as close as that, like the split in terms of how bonus points are dished out. So yeah, I think that's a good one. But what will be the overarching narrative next year and beyond?
Yeah, and that's the thing, by having a CEO dedicated to the comp and having a little more intentionality, I think what we saw is more competence for it to take the next step and have more memorable final. I'm talking about stage trough here, not about the Crusader issue, but just having something that builds more to a crescendo. It's going to have to be, even more planning. Marketing is probably the biggest hole is just telling the story properly. You
will never, ever, ever market Super Rugby Pacific too much. Never.
Yeah, exactly. Just keep
Just keep swimming. The Lions series is here then, mate. Geoff Parkes, for what it's worth, is still trying to rejoin us. We've been trading messages over the last 20 minutes since he dropped off. And so
we can talk about him. We have a lot of stories about Geoff.
We have been talking about him.
What would Geoff say right now?
Yeah, we can pretend. What do we expect of the Lions series? What are we looking forward to? What do we fear? I mean, the schedule is underway. The Argentinian game is done. It kicks off on Australian shores on Saturday night in Perth against the Western Force. The Lions arrived earlier in the week. And that, I think, was the switch that, okay, the Lions tour is on. Suddenly, I reckon there was a couple of thousand people at Perth Airport waiting for them.
Very cool.
And that's the sign. That's the sign.
It's wonderful to see the Lions in the daytime, in sunlight. So a tour to Australia promises some of that. It also promises a lighter. The tours of Australia for the Lions tend to be less grim, and the ones in New Zealand and South Africa tend to be like life or death. I think this is obviously a little more fun. The forward pack's going to be good. So this is not an issue. They won enough ball against Argentina to sort of basically strangle the game. It's all going to be about how Andy and his guys want to play in the back line. And there, it's fascinating because it's that Mad Magazine, spy versus spy. You have Joe and Andy going back and back and back and back. And it's like, do you want to go Hugh Jones or Tupoloto? Do you want to go Bundiaki, Ringrose? Do you want to have sort of a Scottish flavor with Blair Kinghorn maybe coming as a dangerous 15? Or do you want to have Hugh Keenan, the safest houses, and then James Lowe provides your danger with maybe Duhan? The nine
Daily fit in.
It's just so different. You could imagine maybe even thinking the first test differently than the second test. Maybe Marcus Smith is on the first test bench to come in as a super sub. but you go one more week and it's Blair Kinghorn. So I think for the people who are really into the sort of the X's and O's and the matchups, this is a dream come true. Like picking your Lions backline right now. Oh, it's fun.
Really hard. Yeah, it's really hard. And I don't think it will be any clearer this time next week.
No.
They play the fourth Saturday night. They play the Reds next Wednesday. So by the time we come together for this episode, for this show next week, there'll have been 2 games played. We would have seen 2 different backlines. We'll start forming assumptions and narratives around what is the first choice, what is second choice. It's going to be interesting to see, and we've already seen it to a degree. You can sort of work back from the test matches and sort of say, well, all right, I'll probably need to play the test 15 either against the Brumbies 10 days out or against the Waratahs the full lot. But if they play against the Waratahs, that's certainly not going to have.
No, I think the Brumbies.
Many Wallabies.
I think
the Brumbies get it. Yes,
lineup will tell us a lot. Yeah,
I think the lineup for the Reds will be reasonably strong, but then there's games there to follow as well. It is going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how long it takes to get through all, 38 players? How many's in their squad? 36?
Yeah, I think it was 37. Well, they brought in some people with injury cover. I think, in the end, they can probably swell out to about 38. I actually think I don't think Andy and his coaches will be drawing so much from the exact form line of people playing in these exact matches. I almost think it's going to be both a sort of a heritage trust issue of people they know for a long time, but also in practice, because an Andy Farrell system, no matter how you cut it, is a very complicated thing. And you could see that Finn Smith was struggling a little bit in trying to implement it. Finn Russell will not. That's just time in the saddle. That's 89, 90 tests, versus a guy who's done 10 or 12. But I do think that midfield is so up for grabs, and that might be one of the most intriguing matchups, because that's probably where Joseph Akusu-Suali'i is going to find himself. And so you have this incredibly tasty Tuapoloto, Suali'i, Aki. Yeah. I mean, it's almost like a Southern Hemisphere smash up.
On both sides, the only lock in terms of midfield is Len Ikitau. He will play centers for the Wallabies. The 2 Lions centers. I mean, you could throw 6 names in the air and just pick the 2 that land first, and it'd be a good combination. So
I quite like the Tuapoloto Hugh Jones if Hugh gets healthy, because they did carve up the Wallabies on the end of year tour, and I do think making Joseph Akusu-Suali'i make decisions, give him lots to work on defense, as opposed to just fixating on how do you defend him. Make him a tackler, make him have to ruck, make him have to make decisions. I know for sure everything I'm hearing around the Lions camp is the aerials is a real big concern. So I do think Blair Kinghorn, once he gets free of his Toulouse obligations, with his 6'5" frame, I can see him being
and that's
somewhere.
That's certainly where Argentina made Marcus Smith's life difficult.
Oh, that was sad.
Yeah. What do you make of all the posturing? And it hasn't been from the coaching team; it's been from the CEO, and I think that's a bit telling in itself. But what do you make of all the posturing of the Wallabies will be in breach of the agreement if they don't play all their top players in the tour game?
No, it didn't seem like much, wasn't it? It was a little spicy. Is this a little?
And Joe Schmidt basically came out and said, "Champion, stay in your lane." I mean,
I'm hoping there's more. I hope there's spicier things than that. But it is good to see a little niggle, little needle, little war on the press. Yeah, long may it live. The whole Lions concept, the brand
it's also bullshit, mate. Because for reasons that will become obvious next week, I'm putting together something for Rugby Pass next week, and it had me go back and watch the Queensland game against the Reds from 2013 in the last day or two, and it's notable watching back through that, because every time it cuts to the Queensland bench, there is James Horwell and James Slipper and about 7 or 8 Wallabies players in their Queensland number 1s. They come back to Brisbane for the for the tour game, but they did not play. So it's all bullshit.
Yeah,
it just it's ridiculous. And this was Joe Schmidt's point. It's ridiculous to expect that all the states would have all of their Wallabies back, because they just wouldn't. They wouldn't.
On the merits, it seems, weak and all, but it's an attempt.
Sure,
it's an attempt at spice, which I'm all in favor of, and I think there's going to be a lot more of that. The players themselves, guys like Genge will bring some, but you always want to see a little bit between the squads as well, and it'll shake out. Look, until it's about 6 or 7 days before the first test, it's all just kind of silliness anyway.
Yes, true.
And I think probably in the players' minds as well, they are thinking about injury. Everyone's probably thinking, this is my one shot. For a lot of them that are older, it really is their one shot. Like this is it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the memories for guys of past series is interesting as well. So I found myself speaking with Stephen Larkham and Joe Roth this week, and that was around about the Brumbies game and all that. And I said to Stephen Larkham that it's rare that people get 2 shots at the Lions touring. Yeah. Stephen Larkham is actually about to be involved in his 3rd series. He played in 01, was a coach in 13, is a coach in 2024.
Wow.
And he admitted he'd not thought of that until I just asked the question. but I said, so what's your memories of taking on the Lions? And he straight away went to missing the 3rd test in 2001 because he picked up an injury in the 2nd test.
Exactly.
So his whole memory of beating the Lions is around not being on the field. And he didn't say it, but maybe the underlying feeling around that is maybe of not being part of it. He's in it up to his ears, of course. But I thought that's interesting that his memory of that series win is actually not playing.
It's always a strange series. I just read somewhere about the hours of game rugby that some of the Lions have played, and I think who was it? Was it James Ryan? There's some players, maybe Ty Byrne, had put 35 hours of rugby together. Others were as little as 22, 21.
Yeah.
You have a much lighter load at Super Rugby level. So you have this age-old debate about, are you undercooked? Are you overplayed?
Yeah.
And so this sort of getting the right amount of hit out, but not too much hit out. This is the thing that I think the coaches are. The seriousness behind the stupid needle was kind of like, we just want to get into the test series with just enough under our belts where we're not thinking, you're undercooked. For Ty Furlong, Hugh Jones coming back from injury. Who else? There's several players coming back from pretty long-term injuries, and they do want to play, proper players. However, I'm thinking that it sort of holds true for the Australian players. They want to get in there and get some good reps too, because Super Rugby isn't the same as playing the Lions.
No, certainly not. Certainly not. And for some of those guys, they wouldn't have played now for a month. So
true.
There's going to be it's going to be interesting to me to see who gets to play for their state and then maybe gets another shot in that.
Do you know who's playing for the
AUNZ game?
Is Darcy Swain playing for the Force? I mean, do you know those things yet?
Well, Ben Donaldson has just on Thursday has been released to go back to Perth to play the Force game on Saturday night, partly because Kurtley Beale has gone down with a hamstring injury. So there's already some shuffling going on. I think the day before, Matt Fessler and Hunter Paisami were sent back to Queensland to get ready for the Reds game. So there will be degrees of that. It's probably going to be harder for the Waratahs game because the Wallabies play Fiji the next day. But there is already some shuffling of the decks there. So it'll be interesting to see whether someone from the fringes of the squad can play themselves into a 23 via these state games. That's the thing I'm looking forward to. Who can do that?
Yeah, Joe's a guy that usually sticks, and he used last year to.
I'm not expecting any, to be clear.
But if there's two position areas where there might be a pretty low-capped guy, even in the second half, maybe would be at hooker and possibly in the back three. just because those position groups, they don't have a lot of caps in general. And if one guy goes down, one guy pulls up lame in practice, even, suddenly you might have a guy, Max Jorgensen and at the back, and you have, Corey Toole come into it's really interesting how few caps there are.
Is it Harry Potter? Is it is it Dylan Peach even? If Andrew Kellaway is not part of that back three unit, there's 40 tests gone there. If Tom Wright goes down, there's 30 odd as well.
Exactly. So, Kells and Tom Wright are basically the ones that have all the caps in that position group.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. We're looking forward to it because it's going to be a great series to get into. It's going to be different to how we covered the World Cup in 23, but it's going to be every bit as exciting. I'm looking forward to doing it in my own time zone instead of
finally Brett's revenge.
We have plans to be in the same place. You're still sort of working out your complete availability for the series, but certainly Geoff and I will be at the three tests. We're hoping that you might be able to join us, but we'll also completely understand if you can't. But I think it's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to being in Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney the weeks leading into it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, I'm excited for you. Happy for you. You're probably going to end up performing the functions that I was doing in the World Cup, where immediate reactions and being swollen up by crowds of angry mobs.
Can I do a post-match game with a hot dog?
Yeah, sure. Do whatever you want. That's the thing about being the guy on the road, is you can just do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And as people know, I'm like a player right now, battling through an injury rehab. So this is what's giving me pause. But I do think it's the Lions thing itself. Someone said something very apt this week. They said, if you tried to stand up the Lions concept today for the first time, it would never fly.
No, never, ever,
and
ever.
That's why we love this weird anachronism from whenever it started. And it's weird.
And that's why I love how under the badge on their left chest, it says since 1899. You can't gloss over something like that. So it's so crucial that this stays part.
And it showed me the match in Dublin, which obviously wasn't for any cookies at all. It was basically a real friendly, except for Argentina.
It was a non-cap game.
Except Argentina didn't get that memo. You saw the differential in excitement in Dublin from even Irish fans, and you realized this is different. This is different stuff. This is a different animal, and the amount of people that had Lions gear, they literally could just sell. They just could keep selling all night, every day, and they would never reach it.
They've done their merchandise budget already, and I have a very strong suspicion I'll be adding to that.
Yes, you will, and a Gilbert or two.
Yeah, almost. Harry Jones, and it was great to have Geoff Parkes on the pod this week, mate, for about 17 minutes.
He's a crime writer now, so he likes to be mysterious.
Very busy and important. yes, he was certainly, and we will absolutely be in touch with Geoff after this. Evidently, internet connection in the Taranaki aren't as great as they used to be. We will be back with the weekend post-mortem, which this weekend brings a Lions tour into it, which will be good fun. There's also a little bit to get into, which leads us straight into games of the week, mate. And that brings us to the finale. Top 14 grand final, Toulouse v Bordeaux at the Stade de France in Paris on Saturday. That is going to be a ripping game. I'm not going to watch it live. I can tell you that now. I'm actually going to have to try and get to that at some point on Sunday. But I can't wait to see how that game plays out.
Yeah, there's no. I joked in our former episode about there being mermaids. There's no worry about this being not much of a spectacle. There will be a spectacle. No. This will literally be stage produced. It will be Cannes Film Festival worthy. And Bordeaux is flying high, and they are not content with the narrative that Toulouse is the big brother. This is like one of those little brother, big brother things. It's going to be vicious.
Yeah. Well, and the top 14's lent right into it. They've straight out gone, it's north v south. It's literally going to be Toulouse at the north stand. It's going to be Bordeaux down south. In the southern stand, they want this to be an us and them thing. They want it to be black v white.
They're doing something right. They're doing something.
Yeah.
We all need to pay attention to what the French are doing because it's working. Coaches strolling on the field, prowling like panthers. It's good theater. It's very fun, and plus you have the added asset that these two teams know how to play rugby.
Yeah,
they can play any way you want: power, speed, quick, slow. It doesn't matter. Kicking. So I'm for one going to be glued to it. It also will answer the final question of the Harry Index because Toulouse could come from nowhere and take it if they give Bordeaux a bit of a hiding.
So who wins?
Almost like this Crusaders thing, the DNA thing we just discussed. I almost think that Toulouse knows how to close. It's going to be so sad for Maz of Bordeaux. I want UBB to do this. I actually think I'm rooting for UBB. Yeah,
and that's why I think I've taken the romantic angle to it as well. It would be great to see Bordeaux do the double.
Yeah,
the French Championship.
It would be one of the great seasons of a club ever.
It really would. It really would, and it would be completely deserving that they can wrap off an exceptional year with a top 14 win as well.
Yeah, I just worry about Toulouse's bloody mindedness when it comes down to it. So
I worry about what might happen to the top 14 shield in celebrations because it has popped some abuse in recent years.
Jeez,
it was used as a sled at one point.
I worry about the city of Bordeaux and whether it will still stand.
Yeah. Sell your wine well, people. That's all I'll say. It's the championship game in Major League Rugby in the States.
Very cool.
The New England Free Jacks against the goddamn Houston Sabercats at Rhode Island on Saturday.
Very, very cool stadium. Made for rugby, tailor-made. It's got a nice, tidy 6,000-ish attendance, so it'll be packed. They're going to have, concerts. They're going to have fireworks. They're going to have a lot of
There's a real festival feel to it. Yeah. That's cool. Who New England have been going pretty good all year. Houston have been strong the back half of the year. How's it play out?
It's basically, as it turns out, it's basically a home game. So I think New England probably has. Rhode Island is very much a New England town, New England place. So I do think it's within them to lose. Houston has shown a stubbornness for a long time, and this does set up as one of those. But could they spoil the party? So it's a little bit like Bordeaux should win and New England should win. But I think Toulouse and Houston will have a lot to say about it. Yeah, they're going to make you earn it.
Fair. That's fair too. We get to start talking about international rugby in games of the week as of this week, and it starts with the Western Force v the British and Irish Lions in Perth on Saturday night. It's going to be quite a spectacle. Big crowd in at the Optus Stadium at Perth, so a much bigger crowd than what we would have seen for Western Force games this year. I'm intrigued to see how big the red tsunami is, or whether a chunk of that support is flying straight into the East Coast next week. I'll be intrigued to see how many have started on the ground already.
But I think they always have a strategic minority on the ground. I mean, they're always going to be a surprise at how many people live in Perth.
And not at all. Yeah, not at all
Australia.
Discounting the expat community in Perth. No, not at all.
It'll be big.
Yeah.
It's like when you had the Springboks playing in Australia, and there was a huge part of that crowd.
True. Up in Brisbane,
that was all in green. I think it'll be very similar.
Yeah, no, I think you might well be right. And look, I'll be interested to see how the Force. I mean, they can play with freedom. There's no expectation. The expectation is that the Force are going to get touched up. But what if they make life difficult for an hour?
I think they're going to get killed.
They might. But what about if the Lions don't have it all their way? Like, on top of having lost to Argentina, what about if this game exposes another little crack or two in the armor.
Andy and Morrow looked really filthy and upset and disconcerted. I fancy that they've worked out the line out and they're going to stop doing useless offloads. It's just going to be like bully time.
Yeah, no, I think you might be right. Also this weekend, South Africa v the Barbarians in Cape Town on Saturday. What year is that image we're looking at? Is that going back about 5 years ago now?
Yeah, because the armband things, that's
were the last time the Barbarians played in South Africa.
That's a whole cycle ago. Yeah. By the way, the new kit is very nice.
Looks good.
I know you are eyeing that vintage long sleeve jersey.
The throwback to the '95 World Cup jersey. It looks absolutely magnificent. So, and that's going to be a festival game.
Could be fun.
The Barbars are on the end of season trip effectively.
Some very, very funny things going back and forth between the Barbar coaches and Rossi about are we really going to have scrums or not? Can we borrow your coach? Good stuff. Sam Kane admitting.
I wonder if Dan Cole made the trip. I wonder if he replied to that text.
I don't know. It's Sam Kane admitting that they've been blotto in Cape Town and then they're going to crawl out of the bars at some point and start to train. No, it's going to be good. It's an intriguingly named team. And Springboks haven't just named a crazy composite team. There's a proper spine there, and then there's some new guys.
There's an interesting little sub element to it as well. So Hoskins Satutu, Mark Talea have gone from Auckland to Cape Town to play for the Barbars. There's a suggestion that at least one and maybe both of them could then come back to New Zealand via Adelaide, playing in that AU-NZ game.
Oh, very cool.
Which would be cool. Would be very cool. There's a Japan 15 playing the Māori All Blacks at the Chichibu in Tokyo on Saturday as well, just to kick off the international season.
Speaking of uniforms, can I just say that the Japanese away jersey and the Maori All Blacks uniform is really beautiful, both of those.
Yeah, the blue and black of Japan looks really cool. Harry Index, I very nearly forgot about this. The big thing that I notice here, looking at your list, is that we're back to 10, and it's not 15 and 23 like it has been at times. So as it currently stands for our podcast listeners, Bordeaux, Leinster, Toulouse, Bath, Crusaders, Toulon, Chiefs, Leicester, Bayonne, Bulls rounding out the 10. And for our podcast listeners, you absolutely do need to jump on YouTube and have a look at it because there's now colour has been added to the calligraphy.
The Harry Index is done in fine.
Did you steal a small child's pencils?
No, it's actually that's Swiss crayons. The Harry Index is actually done in fine-tooth surface parchment, acid-free, dry media, 74 grams per square meter. Handmade in Wisconsin. I only use the same paper at all times. I mean, the index does, sorry. And then a 3.0 millimeter calligraphy pen made by Speedball. The most important thing about the index you should know is the index wants the truth, which I accuse some of my competitors like Flow Rugby, who people seem to trust for no apparent reason. They're just some guy named Edwin doing that. As opposed to some guy named Harry doing.
I
know, but that's the problem. They say it's because it's got Flow Rugby. Like, no, it doesn't make it any smarter by you put Flow Rugby on it. I accept the truth is hard to know, but I do not cop out with simplistic jingoism or overly faux objective data or wish casting. I know that you have to make hard calls and you have to understand some of the context of games, especially the top 14 with their platoon. And the Harry Index has a way of finding relative strengths of the leagues. And the one contentious position that I would have, that I said the index maybe was wrong, was Crusaders below Bath. I thought that was a bit harsh. And here's the argument, though, and it's not the fault of the Crusaders, is the actual season itself was so short. And what Bath did was so noteworthy, it felt cruel to go the other way.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know. And I just would really love us to play more often.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Two things I say on that. I think it's notable that I think for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I haven't really been able to pick much. So that sort of suggests that things are falling into place. The second thing I observe is that you cannot ever give me grief about my font police actions if you're going to carry on about stationery supplies like you have just now.
I have a bit of, I've got some OCD
I've seen
characteristics.
It. Yes, I've seen it in person. It's very, very interesting. But I think, mate, that is another great episode of the 8-9 Combo Rugby Podcast behind us. Our sincere thanks to Geoff Parkes for joining us. He has just flicked me a message to say that this could actually be a wider network connectivity issue on the North Island of New Zealand. It's not just him or his hotel.
Breaking news.
Yes, indeed. Harry and I remain on the socials in our usual places at BMC Sport, at Harry Bordy Jones. And don't forget to be sure to follow and find and comment and have your say at the 8-9 Combo on Twitter, on YouTube, and on Blue Sky as well. And leave us a rating or review, share us far and wide, all of that business as well. That would be great. This is the 8-9 Combo, the short side set piece combination you didn't realize you needed in a rugby podcast. Sean Maloney's back for the closer. I'm Brett McKay. He's Harry Jones. And we will be back in your ears in a few days' time for the first Lions Tour edition of the Weekend Post-Mortem.
Come play with us.
Here goes Jones with another bruising run. He links up with McKay, who pops back to Jones. They can't. They won't. They will. What a try. The Dream Team Combo go in again.